Okay, I think we're just about there with participants, so let's get started and welcome everyone to the latest in our series of webinars. For the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be hearing from 4 businesses about their experiences during the coronavirus pandemic. There's some good entrepreneurial spirit shown by the businesses on the panel. We'll be hearing to them about that, as well as the key lessons learned and the views on how we need to reshape our businesses to rebuild post-lockdown. Okay, for this webinar, we've teamed up with For Entrepreneurs Only. All the panelists happen to be members of FEO, ourselves included as one of the 6 key partners. We've got a mixed audience today, so I appreciate that some people won't have come across FEO before, so please feel free to leave your details if you would like to find out more, and I'll pass them on to Jan Brumby, who's FEO's CEO. That's a mouthful to begin with. On today's panel, just quickly introduce the panel. I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder, so it'll be a very quick introduction. So we've got David Hall of Beverley Park Lodges, a manufacturer of high-end holiday homes. We're also joined by Matthew Hodgson of the great Newsome Brewery, Martin Lauer of the One Point, an IT and telecommunications company, and our very own Mark Sharpley of Smailes Goldie Group. Just as a quick overview of how the session is going to go, we'll start by going around the panel, just hearing some of their experiences, the success stories, how they've managed to pivot the businesses, and what could have been some negatives and some great success stories. There's some good and bad news in all of that, and we're finding out how the businesses have adapted during the pandemic. Then we've got some pre-prepared questions for the panel, but we'd really like to make things as interactive as possible. Invite some questions from the audience as we go along. So please do, if you have any questions, just hover down to the bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A button at the bottom there. Please click on the button and add your question, and we'll introduce the questions as soon as they come along. As I say, we do want to make the session as interactive as possible. There's also a comments box. If you're struggling with the Q&A, you can always put the question in there. We'll be checking that throughout. We'll be getting wrapped up by 10:45, so please do ask your questions early because we don't want to run out of time. Okay, just to start off with then, we'll just go around the panel to find out their experiences during the pandemic. So starting with you, David, do you want to explain your story so far?
Yeah, of course, Steve. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, COVID started to become a reality for us around the 23rd of March, where it was the day before Boris's speech. I think I'm right in saying that. And we were just sort of trying to get ready for it. Nobody knew what was going on, so we were in talks with the bank. If the worst happens, can we borrow? And they were, yeah, you're green across the board. We'll support you through anything that comes along. Obviously, furlough were being talked about at that stage. So, and then Boris did his speech on the 23rd, the evening of the 23rd. We came in on the 24th, had a meeting with the staff at about 9:30, and I could see the concern on everyone's face, you know, from Boris's speech, the confusion of, because we are a manufacturer, you know, we manufacture. And Boris's speech left a lot of questions. I thought that if you couldn't work from home, you could go to work. Everybody else had, unless you're essential, you don't leave the house. So it was difficult. So I decided to shut the factory for initial 3 weeks. And we called the meeting, told the lads that we'd be shut for 3 weeks and they'll be on full pay. We'd top up the extra 20% and we would just keep communicating from there. So that was the initial, the start of what turned into be our shutdown. From there, I knew that it'd be important to show strong leadership and good communication. And realistically, it was a case of setting up something that we could liaise with staff and liaise with all our customers, for anyone that's got a building, our production, all our staff members, and also, quite importantly, our suppliers, to let them know what we were doing at the time, how we were dealing with things. And it was, we worked on a lot of worst case scenarios with the cash flow and stuff like that. And we're just trying to get ourselves in a good position. I never thought in a million years we'd be shut down for 10 weeks. But you know, we just dealt with it on a fortnightly basis, you know, run different cash flows, speaking to people, communication, keeping on top of it. And no guidance really came from the government on, right, Dave, you've got to shut your factory. It was so many grey areas. A lot of our competitors carried on manufacturing, which I didn't personally agree with. And it was a very strange time for that, because there was nobody saying, right, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. It was just a feeling from my side. We need to shut the factory and we'll take as it comes. In that time, with liaising with suppliers, I had a conversation with a supplier the other day. He said, I've got 70 customers, Dave, and you're the only person that rang me and kept me informed about what you were doing. It was a forklift. It was only for the supplier of forklifts. And he said, you're the only company that's actually rang and said, right, and we kept in touch every 2 weeks religiously and said, this is where we are, this is where we're planning on opening again, and go from there. So I know they were really appreciative of that. And we tried to do that with all our suppliers. And also just keeping on top of the factory as well, making sure that the factory was in a good state. So if we did open quickly, we had everything in place, whether it be sanitised areas, cleaning stations, information for the people, all the right signs up, that type of stuff. So we're always busy throughout it, and obviously trying to sort the finances out through there, whether it be the Sybil's bounce back, liaising with the councils for their money. We were very busy through the shutdown, but none of our staff can work from home apart from our designer, so it was literally a full pause across the board. And then when it came to sort of the end, I decided to start full production on the 1st. We didn't stagger anything. We had half a day's training for all staff, basically, wash your hands, keep out of each other's way, the obvious ones. And we started up full production on the 1st of June. Obviously, we're all quite aware of how close we work and that type of stuff. But from there, we didn't have any massive problems with staff querying coming back or anything like that. So it was a 10-week mothballing of the full company as it felt, really. And that's sort of my experience from it.
Well, thanks, David, for that. I mean, I think you've probably been a little bit modest there. You've maybe skipped over the successes you've had in that time, changing the business around. Just want to quickly run over those?
Yeah, I mean, one of them started sort of at the end of lockdown as we started to, we're called Beverley Park Homes as a company. People were getting in touch with us and asking, oh, well, we like Beverley and we like park homes, not really realising that we was a manufacturer. But what that led us down the path was saying, well, we are a manufacturer, but we do know loads of good parks in the area. And they said, oh, well, can you show us around a few? And we thought, well, and this just grew and grew and grew. And so we redesigned the website for that and offered as a real service. So people that don't understand much about the holiday home industry, they can come to us. We can show them different ranges of build. We can show them different options, whether it be amusement arcades with dressed up people for the kids or an adults only 2-bed hot tub boutique. You know, so we've really got a lot of good contacts. So that's been a real big boost to us, and it's given us a lot more clout with the parks. It's given us a lot more profit within the product. And also, we know we started to see an influx of people wanting the staycation in the Brexit talks, as well as the COVID. So COVID's just helped snowball this staying in the UK more. So it's been a real, not boom time for us, but just being able to change the business slightly to get the most out of it. And now we're really seeing the impact of it, even to the point where last week I've just signed up for a brand new factory, which is separate to Beverley Park Homes, nearly twice the size. So a bit squeaky bum time from my end, but it really is. We've managed to pack a new order book for a brand new business that goes well past Christmas. So now we're in the throes of setting up the logos, the branding, everything that goes in the factory, the full factory setup. So we should be manufacturing from brand new business as well as Beverley Park Homes from the 1st of September. All being well.
Fantastic, David. So it's sort of it started off as absolute crisis, and it's ended up being some more positives coming out of it. So
very much so, Steve.
Thanks for that. Matthew, do you want to just relay your experiences?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Morning, everybody. We are a family-run craft brewery of farmers as well. And as this crisis started to unfold, we realised that quite quickly that we were potentially going to lose 90% of our business in a very, very short space of time with the closure of pubs, which was announced. But even before there, a couple of weeks running up to that, there was a general feeling of downturn in the hospitality sector, knowing that what was potentially coming. Just to give you a little bit of background, we had just in January installed a new brewery in a new building on site, double production, and so this really couldn't have come at that time at a potentially worse time. It was our biggest investment we've ever made in our 14 years of history, and been very reliant on the hospitality, the pub sector, put us in a very vulnerable position. So yeah, it was crisis management. It really was, and so what we did was we had to look at a couple of things. Do we close down in the way David just explained? Do we close down? No, we built 14 years of building a brand, and the last thing I wanted to do was to close and people forget about us, because we'd done a lot of work, certainly in the local area, in building this brand. So we decided that we would look at building on what we could do, and that was delivering to people's homes. We've had e-commerce in a very small way for a number of years now, and so we looked at what skills we had in the brewery, and so we got one of the team to come and work in the office, do some back-end work on our website, and really looked at what our customers were wanting, and they were wanting home delivery. And so that became, over the few weeks, it sort of quickly spiraled that we would become home delivery service, and that would become the key part of our business through lockdown. So we've gone from delivering lots of barrels of beer to delivering lots of bottles of beer. So that produced its own challenges. We don't bottle the beer ourselves, we never have done. Use contract packagers. So there's all the labels and packaging that's required. So like David, we made sure we had really good, and we already did have really good relationships with our suppliers, and many of them are in Hull. So we use our cardboard boxes are made in Hull. Our labels are printed in Hull. So we made sure that those relationships were kept strong, kept people informed. And we also worked with our contract packager. And so we more than doubled what capacity we were asking for, and committed up to the end of, at that time, at the end of October, with packaging requirements for them, because they quickly became very busy, because lots of other brewers decided that they wanted beer bottled. And we built it from there, really. The furlough scheme helped tremendously, because we furloughed pretty much all our staff, apart from one driver initially, and some family members who stayed on to work on the website, work in the accounting side, and packing as well. And then after the initial first 3 weeks, we started bringing people back because we got so busy. And just to put things in perspective, our online sales generally would have, we would have got a few orders a week at this time of year. Very, very few. Christmas, we got peaks. And so our sales online were increased through from 23rd of March to the beginning of July, I think by something like 13 or 16,000%. So we had a huge spike in online sales and became very reliant on it. And it taught us we were dealing with a different customer at this point. We're actually dealing with a consumer. So all the necessary marketing, all the necessary change in the way that we dealt with our customers, which are ultimately the consumers, changed. The other interesting thing is we've realized that we managed to run the business on delivering in a smaller geographical area. So I worked out the other day that we did 5,500 less kilometers delivering beer through that period compared to last year. And yet our revenue for the same period was up by 0.25%. So a huge crisis, but actually we've managed to maintain business. And that's where we are. And the going forward, the challenges are, we're now in a transitional period where the hospitality sector is opening up, but you know, it's still a lot of uncertainty there. So if we can retain 30-40% of this market that we've created the last few weeks, then I believe it's going to put us in a better position. And also our choice 14 years ago to really concentrate on our local market, support local sports teams, for example, work with local pubs on designing products and our services, I think has come back and helped us through this crisis.
Thanks for that, Matthew. Just quickly, Martin, your experiences through the pandemic?
Yeah, so just like David and Matthew, really, obviously there was the initial panic that everyone had. At the one point, we offer managed IT and telecommunications for over 600 organisations. So we predicted that we were going to get slammed. Our phones would be ringing. How can we enable remote workers, home workers? How can we divert calls? How can we securely work from home? All of those really, really, really big questions. We decided to have a COVID daily strategy meeting, which was led by myself, and then we'd all go away and deliver on that. And what we decided to do was to, a bit like what David was talking about, we tried to reach out to all of our customers. We realised that it was a busy time for them, but we wanted them to know that we were there for them. We don't charge any extra for someone contacting us all the time. So we had a choice. Did we go quiet and wait for people to ring us as they needed us, or did we put our hand out and say, we're here for you? So we sent postcards out to people's premises, emails, text messages, and things like that. And we saw it very much as a internal marketing job and an external marketing job. So we saw it as where we would have to double our help desk, our engineering teams, and keep them motivated. And how we did that was, we fed them pizza at lunch, we fed them pizza at tea, just to keep everybody here motivated whilst they were working sort of 10-hour days, really. So, it's been a very, very incredibly busy time. But what we found after sort of 3 weeks, once people had got used to it, we went incredibly quiet. So then that allowed us to continue with the proactive work. So in a nutshell, it's just been crazy busy, really. But our health sector stuff, our care home and our GP surgery business has really helped sort of fill the gap in expenditure from customers, because the NHS obviously got given COVID pots of money to spend. So that really helped us from a cash flow point of view.
Yeah, thanks Martin. Mark, do you want to give the Smailes Goldie story? And I'll try not to correct you too much on the way.
It's a bit like me out at 10 afterwards, probably, Steve. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to get together with these people and talk about our experiences. We Smailes Goldie are primarily service-driven. We service our clients, and whatever happens to our clients will affect us. But the problem we had at the start of COVID was that we're going to test some new systems. We were very fortunate to have invested in our online capability, our cloud-based capability, but not from home. So we decided that this would be a good a time to try it as any, and we forced down this route very, very rapidly. Fortunately, our IT team, which we've just invested in, and our support people, were very good. And we thought at first it would be a problem, but within about 3 weeks of the start of this, having sent everybody home to work, we found that the IT was working well, and what was even more important was our client base was sufficiently aware and had also invested heavily in IT in the last few years. So that access to their system did not really stop us from working. It was quite different at first because people were used to seeing us, and we were these people from far, talking to them on their Zoom meetings, organising staff meetings, getting audit committees together. And the first 4 weeks was really about testing what was going on, finding what was happening, and certainly helping clients who were in trouble. And we're very fortunate to be exposed too heavily to the leisure sector, because I think that sector is still going to struggle for some time. But I think the majority of businesses have reacted positively. The furloughing has helped a lot. It's helped us a little bit. Fortunately, not many people in our organisation have been furloughed. And most people are back to work just about now, but still not in the office. So the challenge for us at the moment is to continue servicing the client's expectations, which I think is going hopefully fairly well. Most people understand the problems we have of working remotely, which not as bad as we expected, and it's tested our emergency procedures. So going forward, I think we're reviewing what we do. I think efficiencies have been built into the system. I think we'll be working differently, but not totally differently. I think the use of this type of facility is going to be very good. I think the future will be more flexible. And one thing it has done is make us think more about how the staff respond to this sort of circumstance, and looking at well-being. Wednesdays, which Lois gets involved in, our people, and it's very important that you look at the mental health of the people that are actually isolated. Nikki Shipley and Luke Taylor have been doing that very well. The plans are met every week, which actually talk to each other on their teams, and actually we get on with each other as well, which is even better. So I think, Steve, we've got through this just about, but there's still challenges ahead, I think.
Thanks, Mark. 10 out of 10, nearly.
Thanks.
Yeah, if we just maybe just have a look at the views on the government's response to the pandemic and the support packages which have been offered. Is there anything which people think's been maybe missing from that response? I'll just open this one up to the panel generally. Anyone want to start off?
I don't mind. Furlough has been an absolute godsend for us. We only have 11 full-time staff on the shop floor, but with shutting the factory for 10 weeks, the furlough was absolutely crucial to us and what we did. Sybil's, we were told, you're green across the board, you'll walk this, you'll get it. We didn't, which I won't go into now, so we'll be here all day. But we got the bounce back. We didn't get the 10,000, we didn't get the 25,000 because we're not retail. We didn't get the 10 because our factory's too big. And we have just received the £5,000 from the council, and there might be a little bit more there, but that's taking some banging on the door to get as well. So that's our experience. The furlough, absolute godsend, really was.
Thanks, David. Just out of interest, is the council grant, is that part of their discretionary fund then, which is available to people who haven't qualified for the 10,000 or the £25,000?
That's correct, Steve. We've got 5,000, and then there's still a remaining pot, and whatever's in that pot gets divvied out to all the companies, which is a bit of a shame it's not on turnover, but I think anything's a help. Best.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to chip in terms of the actual communications which have come from the government as well as support packages?
We can come from our point of view, Steve. I think we sort of very quickly realised that the press releases that HM government were giving daily were actually pretty good. So I think we straight away engaged with our own website to issue latest updates and commentary, and that I think was well received by most people. The government, I think, did a very good job in very trying circumstances at that point. I'm not quite sure they're getting it quite right at the minute, but it's a moving feast. And I think they'll have to look at further packages for the really affected sectors. We'll wait and see what the next couple of weeks brings, I think.
Okay. And just picking up on something you mentioned earlier, Matthew, when you mentioned sort of crisis management. Did any of the businesses here today, did anybody have a contingency plan to deal with this type of event? And if not, in hindsight, what would have gone on it? And more generally, what steps we need to take going forward to build more resilient businesses?
Well, I'll speak for us. We certainly didn't foresee this. We'd done some risk management stuff about 18 months ago, which generally looked at the outcome of major events on our business, and with us making the big investment in the new brewery. But this was certainly not on any radar that we had. But obviously for future, I think we've already, David and I both spoke about good relationship with suppliers is one as a manufacturer. Well, that's as important as your customers, certainly in terms of a crisis, because we could have been left high and dry. But also, I think for us, an over-reliance on some businesses as well, we've got to really look at that now and spreading that risk, because of the uncertainty going forward, in the hospitality sector, we've got to obviously retain proportions of business all over the place rather than having all our eggs in one basket. So, we'll be looking over that in the next few weeks.
Martin, do you want to?
I was just going to say, we were 100% ready, as you'd probably expect. However, the one area, a bit like what Matthew's just said, is we found supply very hard. Overnight, all the tablets were bought up in the UK, all the laptops were bought up in the UK. So We're reviewing that ongoing. Luckily, we were able to find devices, but devices were going up by 25, 30, 40% overnight because the distributors realized that there was more demand than stock. And it was embarrassing, really, because we always hold our prices for 30 days and we couldn't hold them for 24 hours. So we do need to have a look at that. But, you know, I think it has taught, we've been trying to drag businesses into being ready for a long time. And they've always said, oh, no, people have to work at the office. They have to work at the office. I think everyone's gone full circle. I think they've gone, now I can work from home, that's great, and that's now a choice for me, but actually I quite enjoy working in the office and having a bit more flexibility. So I think it's an exciting time for the best employers now. I think if the best employers can get this right, I mean, you're talking about how Smailes have operated over that time, and I think it's a great example about how everybody can change and meet the needs of changing home life and that work-life balance.
Mark, do you want to pick up on that?
Yes, it's certainly making us think more strategically, presently and for the future. It's a case of making the best use of where we are in the city centre and being able to get to clients and service what their needs are, and also to make our environment attractive to existing and future employees or partners. I think, as Martin's saying, it's going to change people's perception. When people look to move jobs or get new jobs or build careers, they're going to look for employers who have got a grip of the IT, the flexible working, the care of the staff and all this sort of thing, as well as being a good place to work in terms of good prospects. So getting that mix right is quite important. So before this, we were looking at an emergency recovery plan, and I was dealing with that, and this has really focused our mind on this. What would happen in the event of a flood, this sort of thing. I think we're well covered. We never expected a pandemic to test it. And fortunately, we seem to be coming through it relatively unscathed, but with very, very different views on the future working processes. We may not develop an office like we used to. I think we'll look at a different type of working. And even encourage, I said to somebody the other day that, you could see our profession going to almost like 24/7 working in flexi time. You can work anywhere in the world. And I think the next 10 years will be an interesting dynamic for professional services.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fine balance between working at home, working in the office, and I don't think it'll be a case if you choose office-based or home-based working. I think that the answer is flexibility and a good mix going forward, and we'll see how that pans out, no doubt. Thinking about the future as we're heading out of the crisis, how do you see businesses continuing to adapt, and the experience that we've gained out of the pandemic, what do you think is going to become part of our everyday business life? I think you've already picked up on, Mark, that Zoom and MS Team meetings will become part of it, maybe even the norm. What's everyone's views on the good stuff that we've picked up and learnt on the way, which will continue going forward?
I don't mind picking up a little bit on that. I think there's going to be a focus on productivity now. I think with the tools that we're looking at, that everyone has at their fingertips, we'll be able to measure people on output a lot more smartly. And I think the businesses that focus on that and not focus on having people physically sat in front of them all the time, and as Mark just said, it could be Smailes Goldie supporting the entire UK. It's not maybe the region overnight. I think the smart businesses that adapt technology, focus on what employees of the future want. This Generation Z that's coming through that want to be enabled with great tools and maybe aren't so focused on £1,000 more on the basic salary. It's more that sort of balance. I think the people that really take a good hard look in the mirror at that, I mean, we're not talking Twitter where they're saying, they're coming out with outlandish statements like people could come back if they ever want to, but they don't have to if they don't want to. I don't think we're ever looking at that, but I think we're certainly looking, and talking on behalf of FEO, I speak to a lot of FEO members on a weekly basis, and they're all saying the same things, you know, enable people to work from anywhere, and give them the trust to do so, but make sure you've got the right metrics in place to measure output.
Yeah. Anybody else, David? You want to?
Yeah, I mean, from a manufacturer's point of view, you know, the Zoom obviously will change my side of things, but for 90% of my workforce, it won't. You know, we are factory based. It's very much what's going on the shop floor, how quickly we react to that. But going back to something that Mark mentioned, it really is about making sure that the staff, you know, we had a real good. From my side, I like to bang my health and safety drum. I like to try and be the best boss humanly possible to create the family spirit, whatever it may be. And this COVID pandemic has been a brilliant opportunity to prove that, you know, to prove that we are well on top of our health and safety, to prove that I care about the staff, you know, and moving forward, people will ask how I reacted, how the business reacted to the pandemic, and we will be judged on that. You know, and that's why I paid my staff. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and I've got small staff numbers, but I paid all my staff in full all the way through COVID, and they skipped back into the factory, and production's better than it's ever been. You know, and when I look to bring people in the future, they will ask what I did and how they were treated through COVID, and hopefully that'll shine for the business moving forward from a health and safety and a financial point of view, and obviously it goes with that.
Yeah, thanks, David. Matthew, anything to add?
I think working at home as a manufacturer, it was always going to be a challenge for us, but I certainly agree with David. I mean, we've rewarded employees that have managed to work through this. Building a great culture as well has helped tremendously, and I think like David said, some businesses that have never even contacted staff while they've been on furlough, on, you know, at home, that's something that's fed back to us from people, and I think that's quite important, because when you're looking, like you've said, like when you're looking for the best people you can have in your team, it's not just the salary that's going to become important. It's the way that you've reacted, you've dealt with things, the way you've looked after them, and you know, small things go a long way. And even a phone call a week to those people who have not been part of the team, keeping them informed, I think that I've realised that that's been quite rewarding. And when it's come to getting people back on board, you know, they can't wait to get back in and they've always felt that they've been part of something, even though they've not actually been here, you know, day to day. So yeah, that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I mean, just speaking to a few of my manufacturing clients, that they in particular, they pointed out the ability to actually work leaner through this. So I think people have taken a much deeper look at the businesses in some areas where perhaps have been overlooked in sort of the times, just with the general everyone chasing the tail day to day, doing the day job. Having some time to look at the business and start manufacturing again in particular, they've been able to work leaner, so doing more with less, or probably slightly less with significantly less staff. Is that sort of something that you guys have picked up, David and Matthew?
Not so much from my side. I'll be honest, we have a really good system for lean, bringing in lean ideas and supporting lean ideas off the shop floor. And I wouldn't say COVID had any positive impacts, or, yeah, fair enough, the factory was immaculate when everyone came back and everything looked brilliant, and it still does. But realistically, I'd expect us to be doing that well in advance without any time for COVID. It's been nice to have a little bit of a pause in some respects to get all them little niggly jobs that have been frustrating us out of the way. But apart from that, not massive on the league.
Yeah, for us actually, we had a member of the team retire just prior to this, and with that and an investment in a bigger brewery, we could double our capacity. We've actually found that at the moment we're not going to need to replace that member of the team. and actually due to other things that we're producing, is actually been slightly less labour intensive in manufacturing it, again because we're using contract packages. So yes, we found that we can make efficiencies, and yeah, that's certainly something we'll be looking at going forward, because again, a lot of it's sector led for us as well, because we're coming into a period of uncertainty that we've got to make sure we can be as lean and efficient as possible, but still offer the great service and great product that we have been doing in the past.
Yeah, okay. Martin, Mark, do you want to come on that? I mean, it was really aimed at the manufacturers, but if anyone's got any views on sort of lean working, please feel free to share.
Yeah, I think many things in the good times kind of sleepwalk a little bit and end up becoming a little bit flabby. And I think what COVID did do for us is make us look at our contracts of employment, make sure that we had that inbuilt flexibility should COVID-20 come, and us not be so lucky second time round, and also really have a look at, you know, capacity versus demand, and are we flabby and things like that. And I think, again, speaking on behalf of a number of the businesses within FEO, I know certainly a number of them have taken a long, hard look in the mirror and saying, you know, are we flabby? Could we cut and still deliver a great service? So I think it's.
Thanks, Martin. I know for a fact COVID's made me flabby, so it's good to hear that some of your clients are finding the opposite. I'm just checking the Q&A box, and I see that we don't really have we don't have any questions so far. So I'd love it if someone could maybe just raise some questions for the panel before we run out of time. We'll continue just picking up on some of the themes we've seen on sort of communication, local businesses working together. We saw some great examples of local businesses collaborating on meeting the demand for the new essentials such as hand sanitizer, PPE, etc. But what's the views on the practicalities and the benefits of securing a more localized supply chain and working within the local community and beyond? I know you've already mentioned, Matthew, that you've done that throughout. You've worked with whole businesses, but is this going to be essential for businesses to succeed going forward?
I think so, and it's not always practical, but for us, it really was an understanding from a great supplier that building that relationship works both ways, and we found that we never once found wanting when it came to raw materials which we required going forward. But you've got to remember, our sector was slightly different. For some of our raw materials, our whole industry had ground to a halt. So, you know, we were having our suppliers on the phone all the time. But I think for our business, local tight supply chains is essential, especially when you're producing a product that's supplied locally, because people become to realise that. So yeah, for us, it's key, and we'll continue to do more of it.
I think it's about trust, Steve. I think, as I said earlier on with the distributors, it was they didn't really care. You know, it was who would pay the highest buck for a laptop or a tablet or whatever. And they really took advantage of COVID-19 in that sort of faceless. Whereas when we needed face masks and sanitizers and signage and the stuff that got everybody through, you knew by ringing somebody locally who you knew that they would deliver, or at least be honest with you and say that they couldn't deliver. So I think it's brought it to the fore a little bit. That sort of buying local attitude. I think we lost a bit of that pre-COVID.
Okay, I've just got a couple of questions coming. Actually, the first one from Jan from FEO. What would you have done differently if you could go back to the start of COVID? So if people could go that time machine, go back and do something differently, what would it be? We are slightly short of time, so maybe just have some brief answers around the panel. David, do you want to start off?
Changed my bank.
Okay.
That's it.
Fantastic. Matthew?
Apart from that, that's it. I don't think there was anything that I really could have done to lessen the effects realistically. And even with hindsight, to stop and start like we did, it's a shame the bank didn't help us out a little bit more. But apart from that,
Okay.
I can answer from our point of view, Steve. I think there's nothing a lot we would change because it was all thrown at us, and I think we did very well. I think the only thing I would want to do is communicate very much more quickly with the banks, or they actually communicate more quickly with us and help us support the client base. And I think the banks were very scattered in the reaction, which was probably a sign of the times. At that point, it was panic stations. But apart from that, I think we did pretty well.
Matthew?
Look who's around you. Look what essential members of your team and the value that they can bring in a crisis. I think that's a great leadership as well. I think as a leader, I could have done a little bit better at times, especially when it, like Mark said, the crisis sort of hits you. You sort of you look who's around you, and you find that people have maybe not been in a certain role at some time can actually bring great value to your business, and look for those people because they're not always apparent.
Great stuff. Martin?
I think every business has really understood and brought into focus the need for prudent reserves, you know, focusing on cash in your bank. And secondly, I think every business needs to ensure they have the word pandemic in their insurance clause.
Yeah, excellent. Yes. Another question has come in. What barriers do you think you will face in order to support and sustain a bounce back? So what are those barriers we're going to have to face going forward? Mark, do you want to pick up on this one?
Barriers going forward on the bounce back. I think that certain sectors will struggle enormously. I've said earlier, the leisure sector particularly. If you're looking after theatres or in the theatre industry, massive problems there to get people back, bums on seats and everything. I think
this 2 metre rule, is that what you think?
Well, there's that, the fact that people are nervous. I think it's nervousness within our population at the minute. You see what's happening in Spain, and you think, well, are people going to start going to pubs? Are they going to start going and socialising? If they do, they take a risk. And I think that's going to be the big test for the future. I think most businesses will have some impact going forward many months. The food sector survives because they can deliver and everything, but I think generally businesses will be conscious of this, and the holiday sector particularly is really fraught with difficulty. So I don't know what they can do at the moment.
That's the overseas holiday sector, of course. The UK holiday sector, the staycations, probably slightly different.
Staycation's good, but they're still not going out spending money on the holiday parks at the moment, I don't think. But maybe Dave will tell us differently.
David, do you want to pick up on that?
We've seen a big increase in sales, and not just from the top end either. We also have an entry level lodge, and it's gone. That's what I've created the new business off the back of the massive increase of since the 1st of June. I went out with the idea of being able to bolster our order book a little. To the products that we offer, we wanted to offer something that was a little bit of a lower range. We sit quite high up. Our products on the parks, so we wanted to be able to create something that fell into a lower market. Well, I never imagined it could go as well as it. I've took well over £500,000 worth of sales in 4.5 weeks. So, and they're all customer orders. They're not parks buying stock. These are specific customer orders. So it really has been a massive. But making the high end stuff's doing what it always does. That never changes because recession doesn't affect it or anything. The high end stays at the high end. But the lower end, with a couple of changes to our side, we've really seen a massive increase in that side of things. Really big.
Okay, thanks, David. We've just got one final question coming. We are running out of time, so we'll do it very briefly. It's from Richard Carlo. Thank you for the question, Richard. Do you think that COVID will be the spare of the manufacturing industry in the UK now that everybody has realised that making things is more valuable than much of the service industry? So I guess, do we need to rebalance our economy to a manufacturing base and maybe tend away from services a little bit?
Well, I can answer that from a manufacturing point of view. That needs to start at school. That needs to start in years 9, 10, because the problem is at the moment, everybody that probably would fall into the manufacturing, like myself, was told at school that they were stupid. And it meant that a lot of people left school feeling a bit stupid that were fairly clever, and vice versa. You had a lot of stupid people leaving school that were told that they were clever. So if manufacturing is going to improve, the apprenticeship scheme needs putting in the bin, and it needs starting from years 9 and 10 at school if you want manufacturing to improve in this country, because the limited skills is really, really detrimental to the industry.
I would echo that, David. I think that I would agree with that totally, and I think that the government's incentives and R&D are also very important. So, watch this space. I think this government's got to invest in manufacturing.
Yeah, I've just got a reply from Richard as well, saying he agrees with you there, David. So, any other views on that, or are we all pretty much in agreement on the rebasing the economy towards a manufacturing base?
I certainly agree with that. As a services business, we need more manufacturers.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have slightly overrun by a couple of minutes there, so I'd just like to thank all of the panellists again for taking in today's debate. Much appreciated. So thank you, David, Matthew, Martin and Mark. We'll now close the session down. So thank you all for joining us. And please do keep an eye out, because there's a series of webinars running. So we hope to see you in future. Thanks very much, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers.